For years, George Martin knew the Beatles were special. From their earliest sessions at EMI in 1962, he recognized their instinct for melody and harmony. But there were moments, rare, electrifying moments inside Abbey Road, when even he understood something deeper was happening. Not just hit songs, not just timeless classics, but recordings that redefined what popular music could be. These were the sessions where creativity collided with courage, where four young men from Liverpool stopped, following the rules, and began rewriting them. Tonight we revisit 10 songs that convinced George Martin he wasn't simply producing a successful band, he was witnessing history in real time.
Yesterday, all my troubles seem so far.
Number 10, Yesterday, 1965. In 1965, when Paul McCartney brought Yesterday into the studio, it was unlike anything the Beatles had recorded before. No drums, no harmonies from John or George, just Paul's voice and an acoustic guitar. Martin made the bold decision to add a string quartet, a classical touch rarely heard in rock at the time. The arrangement was restrained, elegant, and emotionally devastating. Released on Help in 1965, Yesterday became one of the most covered songs in modern history. For Martin, this was proof the Beatles were not confined by genre. They could strip music to its emotional core and still dominate the charts. Number 9, Ticket to Ride, 1965.
She's got a ticket to ride, but she don't care.
Also in 1965, Ticket to Ride pushed rhythmic boundaries. The heavy, almost hypnotic drum pattern from Ringo Starr felt different, weightier, more deliberate. Martin later described it as one of the first heavy records. It wasn't just catchy. It carried tension, space, atmosphere. At a time when pop songs were still bright and simple, the Beatles were experimenting with sonic density. Martin saw their ambition growing, and he encouraged it.
Look at all the lonely people.
Number 8, Eleanor Rigby, 1966. In 1966, Eleanor Rigby shattered expectations. No guitars, no drums, just strings, arranged sharply and dramatically under Martin's guidance. Inspired partly by Bernard Herrmann's film scores, the arrangement created urgency and isolation. The lyrics told a story of loneliness and forgotten lives. It was cinematic, stark, mature. This wasn't teenage pop. This was art. For Martin, this song proved the band was evolving beyond rock into storytelling that rivaled literature.
Turn off your mind, relax and float downstream.
Number 7, Tomorrow Never Knows, 1966. Recorded during the Revolver sessions in 1966, Tomorrow Never Knows felt like it arrived from the future. Tape loops, backward guitars, a droning single chord, experimental production techniques inspired by avant-garde composers. Martin had to physically piece together loops of tape around the studio. The result? A psychedelic manifesto. This was the moment Martin realized studio technology itself had become an instrument, and the Beatles were fearless enough to use it.
I'm going to Strawberry Fields.
Number 6, Strawberry Fields Forever, 1967. In early 1967, John Lennon brought Strawberry Fields Forever to the studio. 2 different takes, in different keys and tempos. Martin performed what many call an impossible edit, splicing the 2 versions together seamlessly. It required altering tape speed to match pitch. The song became dreamlike, fragmented, introspective. For Martin, this was creative audacity at its peak. The Beatles were no longer just writing songs. They were sculpting soundscapes.
I read the news today, oh boy.
A Day in the Life, 1967. The closing track of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club, banned in 1967, remains perhaps their most ambitious achievement. Martin orchestrated a 40-piece orchestra, instructed to climb from the lowest note to the highest in chaotic crescendo. The final piano chord struck simultaneously on multiple pianos, rings for nearly a minute. The song bridged Lennon's surrealism and McCartney's realism. For George Martin, this wasn't merely innovation. It was orchestral drama meeting rock rebellion, and it changed the perception of what an album could be.
Hey Jude, don't make it bad.
Number 4, Hey Jude, 1968. In 1968, Hey Jude defied radio conventions with a 7-minute runtime. Martin supported the extended outro, the famous na 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 refrain that builds into communal catharsis. Radio stations hesitated, listeners didn't. It became one of the band's biggest global successes. Martin understood something crucial. The Beatles trusted their instincts over industry rules, and the public followed. Number 3, While My Guitar Gently Weeps, 1968.
While my guitar gently weeps.
Written by George Harrison, this 1968 track revealed another layer of depth. Harrison invited Eric Clapton to perform the iconic lead guitar. Martin ensured the recording balanced emotional vulnerability with sonic power. The song signaled Harrison's emergence as a serious songwriter. For Martin, this demonstrated that all 4 members were evolving, individually and collectively. Few bands in history have achieved that balance.
Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun.
Number 2, Here Comes the Sun, 1969. By 1969, tensions were rising within the band. Yet from that turbulence came beauty. Here Comes the Sun, written by Harrison during a difficult period, carried optimism and melodic sophistication. Martin helped refine the Moog synthesizer textures, subtle but modern. Released on Abbey Road, it became one of their most beloved tracks. Even amid uncertainty, the Beatles could still produce transcendent hope. Martin saw resilience in their artistry.
And some are living in my life.
Number 1, In My Life, 1965. For George Martin, In My Life represented something profound. Recorded in 1965, it combined nostalgia with musical innovation. Martin played the Baroque style, piano solo, sped up, on tape to resemble a harpsichord. The lyrics reflected maturity beyond their years. This wasn't about teenage romance. It was reflection, memory, passage of time. Martin later called it one of his favorite Beatles songs, because in it, he saw their transformation from pop phenomenon to enduring cultural force. Closing reflection. Across the 1960s, the Beatles didn't just adapt to change, they created it. From string quartets in 1965 to psychedelic tape loops in 1966. From orchestral crescendos in 1967 to raw emotional confession in studio, experimentation through 1969. Each step forward was deliberate. George Martin wasn't simply guiding them, he was keeping up with them. And perhaps that is the greatest testament of all. A classically trained producer, initially skeptical of rock and roll, became the architect of a revolution because 4 musicians refused to stand still. If you grew up in the 1960s, you remember where you were when these songs played on the radio. If you discovered them later, you felt the same electricity. These weren't just hits, they were milestones. Moments when George Martin realized he was not merely producing a successful band, he was witnessing the sound of the future being written, one take at a time. And decades later, the music still sounds ahead of its time. That is not luck, that is legacy.